infused with nuggets of wisdom from Aristotle to Zen, from the statuesque, upright literary giant Shakespeare to stand-up comedians, and with the occasional detours to Bollywood. ताउम्र जलते रहते हैं धीमी धीमी आंच पर, ताउम्र जलते रहते हैं धीमी धीमी आंच पर, तभी ये इश्क और चाय मशहूर. So this session will bring a spotlight on a stimulating literary beverage brewed by an accomplished wordsmith, Jairam Menon. And to join him on stage as moderator, we have a multidimensional literator, Dr. Deviyani Singh. She has a PhD in international... Sir, will you please take your seat? Thank you. Dr. Deviyani Singh has a PhD in international terrorism and a double MA. She taught at Delhi University and worked in the Committee of External Affairs, Lok Sabha Secretariat. Literature led her to don the hat of editor of an education magazine. Her short stories have won numerous awards at the Chandigarh Literary Society's annual writing competitions. She is an all-rounder and a true embodiment of empowerment with a yellow belt in Taekwondo. She has participated in state-level competitions of swimming and hockey and has dabbled in diverse activities, reading, trekking, skiing, the list goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, so we move on to the next session, Masala Wisdom, and we have with us Jairam Menon and Dr. Deviyani Singh. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sunena. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all of you. Jairam Menon is a seasoned communication consultant who embarked on his professional journey as a sub-editor with the Free Press Journal before transitioning into the advertising and PR department of a leading engineering and construction company. His repertoire as a writer spans across journalism, advertising, and corporate communications. Menon is a formidable surname, and Jairam ji thoda jada ho jata, so I will address him as Jairam. When queried about his hometown, he responded with Bombay. Yet, as it is customary in India, mere mention of the city doesn't suffice. So I probed further, Bombay, and to which he whimsically replied, I hail from a tribe. Tribe? A tribe called the Mallus of Mumbai. Thus, we can affectionately dub him a NRK, signifying a non-resident Keralite. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the enchanting land of Kerala, God's own country, Mr. Jairam. While we may have anticipated a serving of filter coffee, he surprises us with India's favorite brew, Masala Chai. This is his debut book, but on the Amazon list of new releases, in the humor section, it is already at number 3. I think he deserves a big round of applause for this, please.
It's actually moved up to number 1.
Okay, I stand corrected. It's coming up to number 1. Even a bigger round of applause, please. Masala Chai for the soul diverges from the conventional self-help literature. It is resplendent with Jairam's satirical wit and humor. It shuns preachiness for practicality. He confronts the world's flaws head-on, skillfully transforming negatives into positives. Across 51 chapters, he enlightens readers, asserting that even our enemies are of value as they bring out the best in us. Among my favorite chapters are his musings on shirkers, potholes, and spitting. It is an extremely well-researched book and has many amazing examples drawn from the lives of famous personalities, books, historical, and international events. A voracious reader and keen observer, he's observing all of you now, Jairam seamlessly interweaves profound wisdom with quirky humor. And that is why our session has earned the moniker Masala Wisdom. So over to you, Mr. Jairam. The first question which comes to all of our minds is, what inspired you to write this book? Or where were the seeds of this book sown? Please.
Thank you. Deviyani, I do not have a literary publicity agent, but I think if you are free, you can take that job, because I've never seen a description as glowing as the one you gave me. Much of it is not true, but you will find that out for yourself. So at the outset, thank you very much for inviting me here and giving me a new perspective on the city. I've come here before, but that was as part of work. This is part of, well, pleasure. And also thank you for giving me a new perspective on spring. So far, spring, as you know, does not enter the office cabin. It stays outside. So I have never really had spring in all my life in Bombay. And this is the first time that I took a walk in the morning to the lake, Sukna Lake. And I was always wondering, what are these poets, like the poet we had just now, the poets talking about love and spring and all that. In Bombay, you don't get much of spring. You get a lot of traffic fumes. Thoda thanda lagaya. Incidentally, Deviyani asked me whether I could speak Hindi here. Coming from Bombay and a non-resident Keralite, she thought I would know no Hindi at all. I told her, "Kai ko tension lene ka." So I'm quite familiar with Hindi. Now to answer the question, why did I write this book? I think the short answer would be global warming. Yes, because I feel we're all too charged up in ourselves, and that is contributing to environmental heat. I think we should step back a bit and relax. And hopefully this book will help you do that.
Well, your Bombaya Hindi will be even more interesting for us. Your Bombaya Hindi will be even more interesting. You're free to answer in that, if you like. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Your day job is what could be called business writing. Corporate statements, analysis of the economy, etc. What part does humor play in all that?
See, I lead a Jekyll and Hyde life. So which part is Jekyll, which part is Hyde, I'm not so sure. But research has found that if you are forced to, you're compelled to do a lot of boring work, then you're better off after that doing a lot of creative work. So I think my day job, apart from giving me money, which it has also made my creative pursuits a little better, because the brain is now so tired of writing those corporate statements and advertisements for engineering and construction that it looks forward to the chance to do something lighter.
So he also has a chapter on how to deal with bores. He's going to regale you with that later.
Oh yeah, bores. Yeah. That chapter ends with a bit of advice that if you find the book itself very boring, don't fuss yourself too much. Just shut the book and go away. So that's the simplest way to tackle boredom.
Now, when I was reading the book, I came across such a poetic flow of witty humor. There was even alliteration and rhyming in his puns and wordplay. Writing humor is one of the most challenging genres. It demands originality and tactful navigation of diverse sensibilities. Finding a balance between understanding the target reader's preferences and risking offense is not easy. And Jairam has successfully pulled it off. Jairam kicks off with 23 reasons to laugh. And the whole book is peppered with quotations from Shakespeare to Charlie Chaplin. So, you describe this as a self-help book.
Shakespeare, Charlie Chaplin, Raj Kapoor. So many. There are a lot of Indians too. Kushwant Singh, close to home.
Yeah, a lot of heard ones and unheard ones. It's really a good wealth of quotations there. It's
Yes.
wonderful.
So you get many books for the price of one.
So that's it. You got a deal too. So you describe this as the self-help book to end all self-help books. Like he said, everything is there, so you don't need any more. So the issues you have tackled are wide, from personal, professional, to social. Was that a conscious choice? Do you think there is any mantra or self-help formula to attain happiness?
No, this book is actually, I began this book as a self-help book, and then I began laughing at myself and decided to say, "Chhod do abhi, self-help. I'll make it the subtext, and the main thing would be humor." So, yeah, consciously I have tried to cover all aspects of life. It deals with the kind of things that one typically worries about, including worry itself. So I've said that worrying is not bad. In fact, worrying is good for you. All the great writers, Eliot, for instance, has he calls creativity the handmaiden of anxiety. And Kushwant Singh has said that a perfectly peaceful life, perfectly peaceful, is not very desirable for creative people because perfect peace is also sterile. So there are a lot of things that you think are distasteful and should be avoided, actually very much go into making what you are. So I think I've dealt with all the worries that you have, A, B, C, D, anxiety, boredom, common cold, depression, right up to Z. When there's the lack of sleep or the urging to have more and more sleep, and how to overcome all of them.
Yeah, I think he's quite right. It is conflict and our troubles that shape us into what we are and make us perform something more than we would. So, do the solutions described in this book really work, or is it mostly fiction?
That is, in the courtroom, it's called a leading question. Hey, if I'd say, "Ye kuch chalega nahi," it doesn't work, then nobody will buy the book. So it does work to some extent. It does not work all the time and for everyone. So that is something you'll have to, it's like a lottery. You pick up something, it could work for you, and it could not, something that doesn't work for you could work for somebody else. But the caption that I gave when I sold the book to Rupa, my publishers, was that it was the quest for happiness. It'll help you in the quest for happiness, and it'll also give you a lot of fun on the way. So even if you don't find happiness at the end of it all, you'll still have had a good time.
Okay, so along with inventive wordplay, Jairam has also coined many new words and phrases. And he has a splendid and impressive vocabulary as well. He calls cave drawings the Paleolithic version of WhatsApp. And lethargic people, multi-shirkers. And habitual flatterers are called the flatterazzi. And there are many more such amusing gems to be gleaned from this book. P.G. Woodhouse's influence is palpable in your work. Who is your favorite character? And do you believe his style still remains relevant? Who are your other literary influences whom you admire or find odd or funny?
Yeah, I've always been told that P.G. Woodhouse is somewhat dated and not very relevant to the present next gen. But my answer to that is that a lot of things are dated, as is religion, for instance. It's older than Woodhouse, and yet it is very relevant. Now, I think Woodhouse, the relevance of Woodhouse is because the situations he describes, the solutions he arrives at. Now, those of you who tell me, I want to know, how many of you all have read P.G. Woodhouse? Yeah. And that, the young generation.
A lot of Plum fans in the house.
Yeah, oh yes, yes, to some extent. Obviously you would have read. But right. That's true. In Bombay, we have a club called the Mumbai Plummies. And one of the things that all of them share is that they tell the next generation, please read. There is so much in this. So Evelyn Waugh has written a classic blurb for Woodhouse books. His Mr. P.G. Woodhouse will give us freedom in a world that is much more irksome than our own. I think we do have that kind of world for various reasons, not just political reasons, but for other reasons, professional reasons, social reasons. You heard the poet talking about the love and what to do when you are lost in love. Well, one of the things you can do is to read Woodhouse. There are lots of people who fall in love, even more people who fall out of love, and the humor is healing, is a healing process. So I would think humor, P.G. Woodhouse is still very relevant. Other humorists, I have found a lot of non-professional humor writers actually very humorous. One of them is the actor Nasiruddin Shah, who was kind enough to give me a blurb on the cover page. He's written a book called, this is his autobiography, And Then One Day. It is actually hilarious. And the book was launched in Bombay by Anil Dharkar, the late writer. And he said he being a professional writer, was green with envy when he read And Then One Day. So there are a lot of it. If those of you who haven't read And Then One Day, I can quote, he talks about Mahmood. All of you all would have heard of Mahmood. He's a comic guy. And this is how Nasir describes him. That he says, while not being quite up there with Charlie Chaplin, he is miles ahead in terms of self-love. So he thinks of himself as much bigger than he actually is. So there are a lot of such satirical comments all through the book.
So I
Kushal
think
Singh also, another writer whose writing is not really humor, but there is a vein of humor running all through. And of course his columns were humorous.
that's a lot of reading to do, and I think we need to have a Plum Society in Chandigarh as well to encourage. So how far can humor take you in life? And what is your take on the new forms of humor, like memes, stand-up comedy, slapstick humor, or even internet trolling?
Trolling is a very cruel kind of humor, but still enjoyable for some people if you're not the subject of it. Now, I myself I've written a bit of humor in publications like Times and Hindu, but I think I have been more the subject of humor in my daily life. Look at Jairam, how does he dress? How does he talk? How he forgets his lines? And those kind of continuous critical comments. Look at the way he has lunch. All that. But listening to all that, I think I have become inured to criticism, immune to criticism, and also I think I have been happy to bring some joy into people's lives. There's another person who said this a long time ago. Same thing, that if somebody is laughing at you, at least be thankful that you've contributed to the joy of his life. Any idea who was that person? Any idea? I have said this now, but this gentleman was a much greater person, belonged to a different league, Mahatma Gandhi. As you know, Gandhiji, you may hear other things about him, but you may not have heard that he was a tremendous sense of humor. In fact, Pearl S. Buck said that Gandhiji, or Mr. Gandhi as she said, was a saint with a sense of humor. That is not something you see often together, but when it does happen together, the combination is formidable. So even at the peak of the independence movement, when there were so many things weighing upon him, like there are so many things weighing upon us, he always had his sense of humor. And that is a great lesson for all of us.
So Mr. Jairam is the right person to tell you how to deal with all kinds of humor and trolls, and you should read his book. So do you think in modern troubled times we take ourselves too seriously? How can humor help resolve conflicts or at least make our day-to-day life more bearable?
Sorry, what's the question? Sorry.
Do you think in modern troubled times, like with so much of things going on and so much of inputs from social media, like we have begun to take ourselves too seriously? And how can humor resolve the conflicts or at least make our day-to-day life more bearable?
I think I'll answer the second part of your question. Yes, I think humor will make a lot of our lives more bearable, but it's one thing we need to keep in mind, that it's not a great thing, it's not those deep, serious causes for grief that we can overcome through humor. That's not going to happen. It's the minor irritations, the fact that you're feeling jealous about somebody, the fact that somebody is boring you, I hope I'm not, and those kind of things that humor will overcome. It is masala chai. It is not dinner or lunch. For those things you need to go elsewhere.
Okay. If you were to describe the whole content of this book in a nutshell, what would it be?
It's difficult to do that. Koi gal nahi. Doesn't matter. Whatever happens, chalega. I was told chalega is not in proper Hindi. Chalega yaar. So that's it, I'd say.
So
relax.
The next question is, how long did it take you to write this book, and do you encounter any challenges? How did you overcome them, and did you have some routine? And could you share the insights of your writing process and any advice for struggling writers?
Struggling writers, I think, I needed a lot of discipline to my writing. And that is because that was inevitable, because either you can have a lot of talent or you can be very lucky. I was neither. Not very lucky, and neither do I have great talent. So all that was left was hard work, which I did. And you asked about the process of writing. You need a certain discipline in writing to be a writer of any sort. you need to get yourself a certain degree of discipline. The great writers, I think, get up in the morning and they continue writing right up to lunchtime. So that's an extreme case, but if you don't have discipline, then you lack the organizing ability to put together a book. So I used to do that to the extent that I had my work too. So, but Sundays and weekdays were all for writing.
So, any thoughts about your next book? Are there any particular themes or topics you're interested in exploring in future? Is it going to be another version of Masala Chai or something like mellow malt for the spirit?
I'd like to write mellow malt for the soul, because before that I'll be experimenting with a lot of malts. But my next book is a very different book. It's a biography of the chairman of the company I work for, Larsen & Toubro. And so that one is titled The Man Who Built Tomorrow. So if you want some serious stuff after reading Masala Chai, please move on to The Man Who Built Tomorrow. It should be out by May, end of May.
So would you care to treat us to some enticing excerpts from the book to let the readers savor a bit of the masala that lies in store for them? We are actually giving you masala chai when it's time for lunch and the moderator is standing there, but just a few
excerpts. Do we have the time, and do the guys have the patience?
So yes, they do have. They can take 2-3 minutes. Sir, what? Yes, please.
So I will read an excerpt. Is it on? No. Yeah, it's on now. From something that is a lifesaver, lifesaver in different situations, at home, in the office, wherever you go. And the lifesaver is the excuse, something that you can't do. So what happens when the game is over, judgment has been passed, and the moment of truth dawns? The victor can be expected to simper pearly platitudes, all of which you've heard before. But for novelty and spunk, turn to the other corner. That's where you'll meet wit, imagination, and an iconoclastic disregard for fact. It's where you'll find that masterpiece of the inventive mind, the excuse. Apart from being a loser's best friend, the excuse is also a universal alibi. The Jharkhand Neta, who was caught literally with his pants down inside a railway compartment, had his excuse ready. He had an upset stomach. Then there was the incident many years ago. It was really years ago because they've written about it in Times, when CCTV cameras in the Karnataka Assembly, they caught a couple of honorable ministers doing something not so honorable. They were watching porn, even when the session was on. When the news broke, and the ministers realized that the smut had hit the fan, they were faced only for a moment. Before you could say Sunny Leone, they came back strongly with the line that they had been conducting research on the subject of depravity for a forthcoming seminar. This was further embellished to indicate that they were also jointly gathering material for a treatise on the exploitation of women. Such original ideas. Indeed, in their final moments, the ministers displayed greater agility of mind and intellectual incandescence than they had ever done in office. If excuses bring out the best in us, it is probably because we have such long practice in developing them. Right from the tender days when we had to provide mummy with plausible reasons on why the number of ladus had dwindled overnight, we have been hardwired to find innovative ways of sidestepping blame. So what is an excuse is really social distancing from the truth. Some other excuses, some of which you can read, I will not be able to. So 2 decades ago, the management Pandit C.K. Prahlad popularized Jugaad, the quick fix solution that we Indians are supposed to be world champions at. Well, think of the excuse as the Jugaad of human interaction. Essential improvisations to keep the show going and the wheels of society moving. Stop for a moment and imagine the consequences if, by executive fiat, excuses were demonetized, so to speak. Everyone would have to admit to everything, causing much uproar and unpleasantness. So that is on excuse. I have this on fairly good authority. William Shakespeare, in one of his more cerebral sonnets, says, "When my love swears she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies." Remember, he is the same guy who gave us all's well that ends well.
So on that note, I think we don't have time for any more. I just want to take one word out of his potholes chapter. There's a word called Macadam. How many of you know what it means? It's not a pronoun for Madam and Adam, but it actually means the bajri, the roda. So that's the kind of research he's done. And thank you very much, Mr. Menon. We'll end with that now.
Thank you, Mr. Jairam Menon and Dr. Deviyani Singh for infusing the masala, the spice of wit, humor, and insightful observations on the same. Thank you so much for this session. And I have an announcement to